Coucou à tous, vous écoutez French Blabla, the only place to learn how to speak French like a native. J'espère que vous êtes prêts pour une petite leçon. Moi, c'est Caroline, votre prof de français. Et c'est parti pour l'épisode 26. Our topic today is something that, once applied, will immediately make you sound like a native. It's a very minor change, but is so important. This episode is for everybody, whether you're a beginner or advanced. It's not grammatically challenging, but it will take you some time to adjust to it. The episode will also be gradual, starting with tips for beginners, working our way up to more intermediate concepts. As most of you know, in French, there are two ways to say we, like in we go to the movies. We have nous and we have on. The first instinct of a learner is obviously to use nous, as it is the direct translation of we. However, it's also a sure way not to sound like a native. Today, we'll forget about the nous and discover the magical world of on. First, let's see when to use on versus nous. I would say use on 95% of the time. Yes, it's this much. If you're in a very formal situation, like writing to the administration about your taxes, sending a mail for an interview, or being in contact with somebody who is really high in the hierarchy, please do use nous. Otherwise, stick to on. Even in the streets talking to strangers, you will use on. I would like to insist on the fact that using on pretty much all the time is not an excuse not to learn the nous conjugation. So don't go to your teacher saying, Caroline said the nous was useless, I don't need to learn it. No. Grammatically speaking, on is always used as a subject. If you need to use the word us, like for example in the sentence, it was us who did that, you will use nous. The sentence would be in French, c'est nous qui avons fait ça. C'est nous qui avons fait ça. I repeat, on is always used as a subject and will be the first word you use in a sentence. There are other situations where on is required. It doesn't only translate as we, but also as one or they. When you make a general and broad statement that refers to everyone, it's the occasion to use on. For example, one can wonder why French people like cheese so much. And in French we will get on peut se demander pourquoi les Français aiment autant le fromage. On peut se demander pourquoi les Français aiment autant le fromage. Another less obvious example would be, in the United States, people don't speak French. Here, even though we have people, we can translate it with on, because it's a general statement that refers to everyone. We will get in French, aux États-Unis, on ne parle pas français. Aux États-Unis, on ne parle pas français. I know that a lot of you do speak French, but don't forget, it's just an example and a generalization. If you remember the episode 25, I told you a story about on, that it used to be a noun somewhat equivalent to men and people, which explains why we would use it when we make general statements. Since it refers to a person, we will also use it when we talk about someone we don't know or don't need to specify. It is similar to quelqu'un. For example, you're inside your home and somebody knocked on the door. You tell your partner, somebody knocked. In French, we would say either quelqu'un a tapé à la porte, quelqu'un a tapé à la porte, or on a tapé à la porte, on a tapé à la porte. Another common situation is when you're in a crowd and somebody stepped on your foot. You could say, on m'a marché sur le pied. On m'a marché sur le pied. Here, we use on because we don't really know who did it. I hope you haven't forgotten that on is always used as a subject. It applies here too. So if you use the words somebody or quelqu'un in another place other than the subject, we won't translate it as on. For example, if you say, I met somebody today, you will translate it as, J'ai rencontré quelqu'un aujourd'hui. J'ai rencontré quelqu'un aujourd'hui. Somebody isn't the subject in this sentence. Don't start using on every time you see a they or a somebody, please. Okay, let's recap before moving on to the next use. We will prefer on 95% of the time. When we say one, they, people, in generalizations, we will use on. When we refer to somebody we don't know or that we don't need to specify, we can use on. Are you still following? If something isn't clear, please tell me in the comment section so that I can help you. Now let's talk about how we talk about us when we're in a group, because there's a very French way using on. In English, it's not uncommon to say, I went to town with Sophie this weekend. We would talk about our activities using the pronoun I, because we're the one doing them, right? Well, not so much in French. When the French person is in a group, the I disappears in favor of the we. So, of course, a sentence like Je suis allé en ville avec Sophie ce week-end, Je suis allé en ville avec Sophie ce week-end would still be a valid translation for our example, but it's not what we would actually say. Don't get me wrong, if you do say this, French people are not going to look at you as if you had said something ludicrous. But there's a better way to say it, and that's using on. When you're in a group and you want to talk about things you did with this group, can be a group of 2 people, doesn't really matter the number, you will ditch the I and use on. Let's use our Sophie example again. Remember? It was, I went to town with Sophie this weekend. We will get, on est allé en ville avec Sophie ce week-end. On est allé en ville avec Sophie ce week-end. Could be with your family. On est allé en ville avec ma famille ce week-end. On est allé en ville avec ma famille ce week-end. Could be 3 people. On est allé en ville avec Marc et Sophie ce week-end. On est allé en ville avec Marc et Sophie ce week-end. The same phenomenon happens when you count a group with you included, typically at the restaurant. The waiter asks you how many of you there are. You could answer in English, there are 2 of us. Or maybe, it will just be me and my friend. The first sentence isn't at all translatable as it is. The second, however, would be okay, but again, yet valid, a native would rather go for the more natural on. To the question of how many, a French person will simply say, on est 2. On est 2. Literally translated as, we are 2. The group trumps the individual. So next time you want to tell your family about the awesome trip you had in France with your partner or your friend, remember to use on. On a visité la Tour Eiffel avec Sophie. C'était super. On a vu les toits des immeubles et ensuite, on est allé manger au restaurant. We're almost done. I hope you're still there. I know it was quite a lot of information to digest, but it was essential for your French. The last thing I wanted to talk about is still on the topic of this group thingy. There's a very common sentence structure that a lot of students stumble over. I've already talked about it in episode 16, how to litter your French like a native. But let's cover it again. It was about doubling the subject. For example, je fais pas ça, moi. Je fais pas ça, moi. Literally, I don't do that, me. The same thing will occur when we use the structure name of the person plus I. For example, my partner and I bought a house. Or, Mark and I swam in the lake this weekend. If you translate it as it is, it won't sound natural. We need to double the subject, using our favorite word on. So every time you use the structure name of the person plus I, you need to add on right after it. For the first example, my partner and I bought a house, we will get mon partenaire et moi, on a acheté une maison. Mon partenaire et moi, on a acheté une maison. And for the second example, Mark and I swam in the lake this weekend, we'll get Marc et moi, on a nagé dans le lac ce week-end. Marc et moi, on a nagé dans le lac ce week-end. And it's a wrap. That was quite a long episode, and you made it. Congrats to you for sticking until the end. I hope how we use on is a bit clearer now, and that from now on will become your favorite word when you talk about yourself in a group. To check that you have understood everything, I have prepared a challenge for you on frenchblabla.org. I'm looking forward to seeing your answers and we'll meet in the comment section. Bonne chance et à plus tard!